Welcome to my review of Avatar The Last Airbender. Wait. Wrong Avatar. This was almost becoming another Ryan The Last Airbender. Okay, strike two. Okay, let's try again. Avatar Way of the Water. Yeah. It's been, 14 years since the I think it was 14 years or 16 years. More than 10 years that is that James Cameron movie came out. You know, Avatar, the one that is not the Last Airbender, the one that it was kind of like at the top, a big box office success thanks to James Cameron and his magnificent 3D and the magnificent CGI spectacle that he gave us years ago. And some people barely remember it. I kind of barely remember that movie when the hype just fades away. Just in case, I did saw the movie once. I did see it in 3D. And I remember that during that time, I didn't think that it was such a big deal. I commended the graphics, but I wasn't exactly, how can I say, wow by this, kind of like saying that this movie is groundbreaking or something like that. Because story-wise, it isn't. It's not exactly, as grandiose as kind of like Terminator 2 or Titanic, which I think that these movies are better in my opinion compared to Avatar, and in a way, when it's about James Cameron, a lot of people hold him in really high regard, and I am one of those guys who don't like to overhype a lot of stuff, not even people. In this case, James Cameron, I can commend him that he is a very ambitious director with very ambitious technological stuff. But man, that when he makes movies, he puts a lot of money out of it, and you can tell that James Cameron was really ambitious. It's really ambitious building up into the world of Avatar, or in the case that the planet that it takes place is Pandora, and honestly, that ambitious even came out when Disney bought Fox and they just wanted to incorporate the world of Avatar into theme parks, and in my opinion, was that movie worth that? Because honestly, for one movie, it didn't kind of deserve that recognition. Kind of like more, kind of like the same vein as Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, I'll say. So, and I was just saying that and I remember that over the years, the movie was actually made fun from being kind of like pretty graphics, but the movie technically wasn't exactly good. It was everyone. Yeah, I know the story. Everyone compares it to Ferngully or Dances with Wolves. Even the South Park episode made fun of it. And I agree. That story-wise, it wasn't exactly kind of like something to brag about. And it was a movie that I just say that, well, I just watch it once, and well, that's it. Now, nothing to cry home about. It's so much that when Avatar Way of the Water finally came as a trailer or something like that, I was like, okay, no, it's not gonna, the trailer is gonna be like basically the same thing that I was expecting. It's gonna be pretty graphics, but the story is gonna be nothing to cry about. So, and it's sad because they put a lot of money into it, and if people kind of doesn't care for the movie, it's not gonna how can I say, recover the sorry, man. Sorry about that. Like I said, it's gonna be a tall order to recover the amount of money that it is. But well, if it makes James Cameron happy, who are we to judge? But still, as someone who likes a movie, I am gonna judge as it is. So I went to the movie theaters, but in a way that I was a little bit dreading that I was gonna suffocate with 3 hours and 10 minutes movie. And with so much that, the funny thing is that before the movie was gonna start, I was doing a little bit of some Christmas shopping, and I wanted to buy some tape for in a dollar store, but unfortunately the dollar store accepted only $5 max minimum for my debit card. So at that point, I just decided to buy something that something, how can I say, that compensates the $4 that I needed for the Scotch tape. And that thing, I bought some coffee. And man, I drank that coffee, and it kind of helped me out, probably staying awake for the majority of the movie. Maybe, but I'm not saying that the movie was technically boring or something like that. But you know what? I'll say it at once. I finally saw it, and I think that I like this movie a little bit better than the first one, but then again, I kind of forgot my exact feeling for the first one. I just went there kind of saying that, okay, I'm just gonna revisit it and see what it is. I like the movie as far as spectacle goes, but I don't want to overhype it by saying that, oh my god, it's the greatest movie ever! Look how beautiful it is! It's so amazing! Wow! I don't want to be that kind of guy, because overhyping a movie, giving it a lot of positives, kind of makes as much harm as giving a negative movie, even if it deserves so. And yes, I'll give Avatar: Way of the Water a lot of credit that it is really ambitious. It's really ambitious on the technology. And mind you, for a movie that it always markets itself that you have to watch it in 3D, I didn't watch it in 3D, and still I could see how much effort they put in on the visuals alone. But story-wise, I will say that it's still a paint by the number movie, and it wouldn't be exactly a bad thing, because if you do it right, you do it right. But in this case, it's basically a paint by the numbers movie that they managed to stretch it all out to make it a 3-hour movie, kind of a little bit unnecessarily. But still, let's say the movie, it just feels kind of like one of those that you're just there to see the experience, and well, the story is just kind of like an excuse to give this movie kind of like a plot or a lore, to build up kind of like this world building that James Cameron is so insistent to create this world, and I give it that. It is great, I'll say. It is a great world. There are some things that I personally not exactly a fan of, and this also comes off a little bit in the territory of how it's presented. But I'll get to that in it. Let's talk about a little bit of kind of like the story. But for those who doesn't remember, it has kind of like the setting that it sets on this planet known as Pandora, and it basically is technically in the future. The Earth is kind of became scummy and all, and from what you can tell, if you remember the first movie, that people just it go to this planet. They invade it, especially because they're trying to get this mineral. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's basically this MacGuffin that it just kind of gives itself a reason why they're just exploiting there. And basically the humans are there. They just can't breathe the same air in the atmosphere of that planet, so they created kind of like this device that they insert themselves into the body of the people that live in this planet, the Navi they're called, which is basically this semi-naked blue cat people that are taller. They have tails. They're kind of like, the best way I can describe it is kind of like the older Native Americans from cowboys and Indians, for lack of better words, I'll say. And of course, yeah, it kind of becomes Dances with Wolves when one guy named Jake Sully, who is kind of like our main character, he just infiltrates this place. He falls in love with this other Navi named Netiri, and of course they battle the big bad military. So basically, you remember the last movie kind of ended with the body of Jake Sully dying, and he turns himself into the Navi and wakes up from it. And the beginning of this movie, The Way of the Water, it's kind of showcased that all the humans from Pandora, they're being expelled from Pandora after they won the war. They call them Sky People, just in case. And well, Jake and his lover Netiri, I think it was called Netiri. They settle down. They get children. I think four children. Some of them are hybrids. Some of them are hybrids. Actually, I think 3 of them are born, and one of them is kind of like adopted, which is basically kind of like the avatar or the daughter. Help me if I'm wrong, but she's basically kind of like the adopted daughter of the Sigourney Weaver character from the last movie. Oh, and by the way, the mocap is still played by Sigourney Weaver, just in case. And I think the voice is also Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver also voices that character. But anyway, basically Jake and Netiri settle down until, well, the Sky People comes back, and to make things worse, the main bad guy, who is this sergeant played by Stephen Lang, he was supposedly killed in the last movie, but no. He comes back, but this time as an avatar. He comes back because the avatar kind of downloads his memories in case that he died and everything. So basically, he just wants revenge. And Jake, in order to not endanger his tribe, he and his family they decided to how can I say to self-exile, and so they have to run away. And in this case, they take solace in this other tribe of Navi people, which is basically kind of like the water Navi, with lighter blue colors and some aquatic limbs here and there. And well, basically most of the movie is them learning, well, for lack of a better word from the title, way of the water. And well, in the meantime, the Stephen Lang character just keeps searching from them. So I'm glad that the movie didn't. It kind of feels like it could be its own. And doesn't need exactly kind of like a 100% refreshment from the last movie, which I didn't think it kind of needed it, but if you're kind of like an Avatar fan, probably if there's one in it, you're gonna get familiar with the character. Again, I didn't revisit the movie because I didn't feel like revisiting a movie that, for the most part, I thought it was fine, and I wasn't very keen for it. At least the movie, it refreshed you enough in order to at least remember bits and pieces of well, maybe I think in the Avatar is a little bit of a forgettable movie, but in this case, well, the character is still kind of like paint by the numbers, but there's a certain story arcs here and there, and the dynamic of the Sully family, for lack of better words, is there. You kind of see the characters, but I will say that probably the best arc that I could say from this movie, it involved the youngest son, who basically he's kind of a little bit brash, but sometimes he gets into a lot of trouble, much to the disdain of our protagonist, Jake Sully. But of course, the little brother, he kind of feels like he is a disappointment to the family, and the only one who actually gives him some kind of keeps it in like a solace and arm is his big brother, who he's always kind of seen like the best brother here and there. It's a little almost, it kind of remind me like a reverse version between the brothers from Mob Psycho 100, and if you kind of catch my drift for anime viewers, and so, but even though I kind of praised that family dynamic and in the arc of that little brother, I think I wish it could have done a little bit better and a little bit more nurtured when it's the side of, the father and son relationship, that there's some restraint here and there, but I think they didn't tackle it well enough, to keep it to, make the story a little bit more fruitful. It is there, but maybe if the movie kind of trimmed down a little bit more on wowing the spectacle, if you catch my drift, then they could have built it a more how can I say, a more rich story here and there. Although there are some other things that they kind of go that this movie gives out. For the most part of the movie, of course, it's just seeing the Navi from the forest, Jake, or in this case, Sully, the Sully family, trying to learn how to breathe underwater. No, not breathe underwater. How to hold their breath underwater for longer periods of time. Getting in contact with the animals from water. And by the way, they still do this weird connection with nature by immersing themselves, by kind of like using their hairs. And oh my god, these hairs is kind of like natural USB ports. I don't know. For some reason, for me, it's kind of freaked me out a little bit. There's also this kind of like story arc in which one of the human child that actually stayed on Pandora when the humans were kicked out. There was, how can I say, there's this kid who they call Spider. He's basically kind of like the human that they stay and they warm up with him. They kind of make him like the adoptive son. And basically, this kid kind of becomes Pandora's Tarzan. That's the best way that I can describe in my head. And then it is described that he was basically the Stephen Lang character's son, and basically most of the movie he spent kidnapped by the humans, and basically he's just kind of like the Stephen Lang avatar, and the Spider Kid just kind of like having this awkward relationship in which he's basically treated like a prisoner, but sometimes he's not exactly treated like prisoner. It kind of like, it wanted to create kind of like this awkward father and son relationship, or or a son relationship, but the husk of a father relationship. But honestly, that part kind of doesn't mesh very well. And again, it's because the movie prefers to have a spectacle more than making a story, a cemented story in a way or another. I am sorry. I'm not trying to shit on this movie because it doesn't deserve so. But and also to make this movie a little bit more ecological. The little brother, let's say, because he feels kind of like a disappointment from his father and everything. Comes also a moment in which he befriends this big giant whale, but basically this whale is technically an outcast too, because it doesn't explain exactly very well. It's kind of like it's just kind of like how can I say? They say that this whale is a killer, but it didn't prove much about it. It's just kind of used for something to have a small redemption during the climax, but it's more kind of like this whale kind of became more like a chestnut gun for some reason. That's kind of like my opinion. Don't take me too seriously. This is I'm talking more about like first impressions here and there. There's also the Sigourney Weaver character who she kind of also feels like an outcast, because all the kids, they see her as a hybrid, because one of the things that the Na'vi is very different from the Avatar Na'vis is that they have a complete set of hands, four fingers, and all these things. And they also came a moment in which apparently they kind of opened this can of worms, in which it kind of want to go to her backstory, but that thing, they left it out, and I think on purpose, because James Cameron is so proud of this creation that he just wants to create 4 more movies about the world of Avatar. Well, good luck with that, because I don't know how much money is gonna make, especially when box offices are kind of struggling, even when you're. It doesn't matter. You're very ambitious with this movie, and you're expecting this movie to raise, $200 billion. It's kind of like a tall order, considering that when I went to see this movie, only half of the audience filled the movie theater. Okay, that was a little bit of a rant, I'll say. So let me make it up by saying that if there's one thing that I want to praise, but at the same time I want to dread, is the technology and the ambience, because it looks beautiful. Pandora is great. It looks lavishing. Many people kind of compared it to video game graphics, but video game graphics from what I like double toasted compare it, kind of like video game graphics with the best computer, and it shows that they work very hard on this one, especially when they finally reach the water people and their land, and then you see them go underwater. You can tell that James Cameron is a big fan of underwater stuff. I mean, look at how masterfully he did Titanic and the Pandora thing, and it shows. The physics is great, and the animals are amazing. It looks like a place that you will go there, but on the second hand, they have these Na'vi who are aggressive as hell, so no thanks. It's both threatening, but at the same time welcoming, and this is coming from me, who personally I wouldn't go I wouldn't like to go into deep water. I have a little bit of a phobia of going very deep into the sea. So, so it's the animals, the underwater scenes, everything. It's so great, and the movie's so proud of it that this is basically 60% of the movie. So much that most of the time it doesn't advance the story. It's just the characters while the characters are learning the way of the water. We as the audience, we just uh, we just see it and marvel. It's almost like you are underwater and seeing kind of like the most exotic aquarium ever. Funny thing, because since this movie has Sigourney Weaver, I was expecting to see Dory from Finding Dory. Oh, sorry, that in Finding Dory, Sigourney Weaver plays this plays kind of like this aquarium announcer, and it never left my head ever since I saw that movie. so, uh, so yeah, these are what I love. But what I don't love are the Na'vi themselves. Personally, but this is a personal aspect, I am not a fan of the Na'vi designs. I think they look a little bit too humanoid for my taste. A little bit too human. I know that they have a little bit kind of like cat-like noses, the ears, and all these things. But still, I just think that they're just kind of like a little bit more human in a way or another. Maybe if you give them kind of like a little bit more snouts or fur or something like that, maybe they'll have kind of like a more distinguishing or appeal. But this is just me. And another thing that I am not exactly a fan of is that this is something that I want to criticize on Avatar, is that a lot of money has been put into this movie to make it look great, at least on the settings. But my biggest problem, and actually my biggest concern, is how realistic the humans look. I mean, this movie is a lot of times mocap, and and when you make things a little bit too realistic, it loses the charm of animation. And while making things realistic is a challenge, it's a challenge that many artists try to do, even when drawing. I will say that it kind of limits how can I say, some of the movement, the charm. It's hard to describe it, but you can sense it. You kind of sense that that when you see a difference between watching real life people and, well, a cartoon. And it's kind of like a little bit when I criticize movies that they want to make live action cartoons, and I don't. When I see a live action acting like cartoons, it doesn't have the same impact when you see them in animation, because either you're gonna watch something that is flexible or cartoon, or else you're gonna make a silly human acting like an idiot or something like that. In this case, I could say that when you see kind of like the humans looking so realistic, I kind of wonder if you could add kind of like the same effect if you hire actors but acting in a kind of like a green screen. But in the other hand, now that I think about it, it's gonna open a can of worms by bringing a challenge that incorporating humans into an animated world, in which I know that it has been done, but considering James Cameron's vision, well, maybe it was safer, to make all the humans, well, animated, but looking so realistically so they could fit into the environment of Pandora. So that's one of those nitpicks that I kinda have. I'll say. What else I can? What else I can? I was gonna mention about this movie. Well, again, the music is. It has good music. It has kind of like the story that it is basically got a lot of world building. I'll say. It kind of takes its time. And boy, that, like I say, it's the pacing. I'll say. Oh yeah, yeah. I was talking about the pacing, that it's not exactly tiring, but sometimes you feel it when the plot comes on. Most of, when at first, you marvel, the scenery, and this is kind of like the wow factor that is kind of like ensnaring that this movie has. You just see the environment, you go like, wow, something like that. But then the plot comes in, and I was like, oh my god, here's the action or something like that. Wait a minute, what was the plot again? Oh yeah. Family versus bad guy who was hunting them. So then comes this, and then wow, look at it. I remember that while watching the movie, I was marveling the whole water thing. That it almost like a very ambitious nature documentary. So much that I didn't even want it, the plot. I was thinking that maybe the movie could have benefit if there wasn't a plot, and it was just a whole. Just see a family trip going through different cultures. This one, in this case, the way of the water, you just go there. Maybe have kind of like a smaller plot instead of the big bad military plot, in which, okay, to give it credit, it does lead up to a nice climax, I'll say. I almost forgot. I'm not exactly a big fan of the Navi when they make the or something like that, because it kind of reminds me of Cena, the Warrior Princess, and nobody and coming and thinking about it, nobody ever call out James Cameron saying that their battle cry is almost like Cena, the Warrior Princess. But again, that's just me. Oh, another nitpick that I have, there are a few scenes in which we see female Navis pregnant and still going out hunting, and also going into war. Is that allowed? I mean, if you care for their children, then don't go hunting, or don't go into war while pregnant. That's just me again. That's pretty much I have to say about Avatar: Way of the Water. You know what? I think I cover enough at least to kind of convince you or not to watch it. I do recommend it to you, and if you want to watch it in 3D, fine with me. I mean, the water scenes alone, they could look really good on IMAX. I didn't watch it on 3D because I personally think that environmental 3D is very gimmicky. I much rather watch all the gimmicky 3D when they jump out of your face here and there, because that kind of makes you feel like they're playing around. But okay, James Cameron, you did your best. You really you're really ambitious into creating this world, and I commend you, even though the stories are kind of like average, to say it nicely. But still, you spent millions of dollars into it, and we can't wait for at least your Dirt movie, because it does leave out with a little bit of a cliffhanger, like the one I mentioned, and there is also kind of like another thing that kind of leave it out in the open. Maybe Probably they're gonna go with all the elements, like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Who knows? Maybe they'll find fire Navis or wind Navis. That's the best way I can describe it. But in the meantime, we're gonna probably wait 15 years for Avatar 3. Maybe. I heard he was doing it back to back. But you know what? I don't know. Time will tell.